Hello and welcome back to Strategy for Breakfast, where we are hungry to know what makes people and what makes their organizations successful. Here on our YouTube channel, we are continuing our conversation with Andy Lin. Andy is the CEO at Provoke Solutions. Provoke is an end-to-end technology services company focused on building software to help clients win. And of course, Andy, in this day and age, that means you are a specialist, an expert in all things AI and helping companies leverage AI.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining me for this extended version or our second cup of coffee. Me and Andy did a recent podcast episode where we covered Agentic AI for our audio only listeners. So I really wanted to take a deeper dive into Agentic AI since there is really so much buzz around it right now. Would
Yeah.
you agree that this is the sort of buzzword if you had to put a
Yeah.
title on it?
Yeah. I think it's a buzzword that's not going away. I think there was, 5, 6 years ago, there was a lot of buzzwords around, cryptocurrency,
Mm.
blockchain, etc. And while they haven't disappeared, they certainly have kind of faded in terms of where are people allocating capital, where are people allocating their time and attention towards learning and building skills. But I think, this generation of AI capabilities is here to stay. I think this goes beyond cloud. This is probably a lot closer to, in the late 90s, early 2000s with the arrival and the sort of mass adoption of the internet and, the transformative nature of that. I think agentic AI represents that level of disruptiveness and pervasiveness.
That's fascinating. And I want to dig in a little bit more with your history and background. Listeners,
Yeah,
watchers, subscribers,
yeah,
hi, I'm Kelley Iuele. I'm from GDS Group. And Andy, so grateful you could take more time with us. Andy and
yes.
I met in July of 2023, to be exact, when Provoke Solutions, company you're the CEO of, partnered with
Hmm.
us to do deliver a dinner event. And
That's right.
in that, we were talking at the time about how Gen AI was sort of shaking up the market. You just alluded to it, your history in this space. And in our podcast, you said since you were 10 years old, you've sort of been passionate about
Mhm.
developing software. Talk to me about how that led into this career and your sort of
Yeah,
progression.
yeah. So, I wrote my first program without a computer. Actually, it
Wow.
was being an avid video gamer, like many boys are when they're growing up, and girls actually. But you know what? Immediately, kind of drew me. I was like, how do I make my own? Like, how do I build my
Mm.
own games? It wasn't just about playing them. I was fascinated with how it was built. So, back then there wasn't the internet. There certainly wasn't ChatGPT. So research involved, going to the library and checking out books and reading up on it. And it was on that basis that I just started writing programs on a piece of paper. Parents would take me to Kmart. They had a demo Commodore 64 there. I would run up there while they were shopping. I would type my program in. It would
So
work,
cool.
not work. Maybe I need to go back and learn that. And so, fortunately enough, my parents eventually did buy me a PC, and that really allowed me to kind of explore the side of what I wanted to do. And in high school, I landed some freelance programming work, so that was good. Kind of my first, paid um, programming job. So I was really, happy about that. Went off to college, and like many Asian American kids, your mission in life is to become either a physician or a physician. Like that was really, what my parents really wanted me to be. But I soon realized that just wasn't who I was, right? And kind of did the whole pre med thing, but at the last second, just decided this just was not something I could pursue.
Wow.
And was at a job fair with somebody and found this company called Anderson Consulting. It's now better known as Accenture. And I didn't think I would fit because of my degree. But they're like, no, no, we hire across all degrees and all that. I'm like, oh, really? And so that's where my professional kind of career began, was at Accenture. Got a great foundation, learned, the consulting business really well, and then joined a series of small to medium-sized businesses, really always staying technical. But what I've
Mhm.
done is kind of parlay that technical capability and that technical curiosity throughout my life, and just learned how to, kind of be more of a well-rounded professional in consulting. So, moved into much more kind of P&L management type stuff, like
Mhm.
profit, just managing the finances, managing people, managing teams, and then eventually working my way to CEO here at Provoke.
I love that story. And I love that what I know about you is that passion for the tech. And what
Mhm.
that translates to for companies is a simplification of what can be intimidating and overwhelming when it comes to digital transformation. So, we talked in our podcast about Agentic AI, why it's the direction and the evolution, and why it's going to be so helpful and monumental for companies to embrace.
Yeah,
What's what's important for business leaders to understand who still might be at that intimidation place where
yeah.
they're still trying to make a case for getting some funding for some tools?
Yeah, like everything else, it's a complicated question, so it's going to have a complicated answer. So, I think the first thing is you really do need leadership and management to be semi bought in to the
Hmm.
vision. If you have business leaders that don't believe it, and sort of like when the internet came out, and there were some people who just believed brick and mortar was always going to be the way that people purchased goods and services. I mean, I don't think we need to go back in history. We know a lot of those companies don't exist anymore. And so I think this is going to be the same thing.
Mm,
But let's assume you have a leadership team that's at least open, but they just maybe want to take it a little bit slow. And as with everything else in life, right, a lot of the fear and uncertainty comes from a lack of education.
yeah.
So, you hear sound bites and cognitive bias kind of gets in the way. And so you just listen for the things that kind of reinforce your own biases. Like truly go in and listen to both sides, right? Get educated about this stuff. And number two, like start playing with it. Just
Hmm.
experiment. There's lots of things organizations can do that are low risk, low cost, low scale, and you can start getting comfortable with the technology and you can start, really figuring out what are the risks and issues that are actual real dangers and what are the risks and issues that are just kind of FUD and what are the
Right.
real risks and issues that you can actually manage, right? So I think it's like education, experiment, learn, and then on that basis then make a decision on how you're going to make some strategic decisions around what are you going to do with this tech. We just as an organization have done this for the past 3 years. So before agentic AI became the buzzword, our head was already in that direction. We knew this is
Yeah.
where it was going. So we had called them digital coworkers, employees, right? So sometimes when you hear me talk, I might still accidentally slip that in. But if you really think about what our vision was 3 years ago, it was really what has now been named agentic AI. And in the last 3 years, the advancements have been exponential. This isn't
Yeah.
slow progression. Like this is rapid. And so the other thing for enterprises to realize is, with cloud, there was it worked out okay for some of the laggards because they got to learn from some of the people who were more on the forefront, made some mistakes. You can learn from them. With agentic AI, I think the problem is the people who are early adopters, they're going to build such a lead at
Yeah.
such a pace that by the time you decide you want to jump in, you're not just 6 months behind, or whatever amount of money that the other company did. You're probably 2 to 3 times behind now because they've moved on to the next thing. And so like you really can't afford to be a laggard if you want to be in the leaders quadrant 3 years from now, 5 years from now. Like you have to start it today.
Yeah. And it makes sense why you talk so much about innovation. That's what's at the heart of this is your very existence, your ability to innovate as a company. Well, I am a journalist, and at heart, a note taker. My background is
Yeah.
television news, so truly note taking is in my DNA. And you have done some events with GDS Group. You've spoken at our
Yes.
summits and shared a lot of great
Yes.
intelligence. But at the first event I covered with you, some of my notes, I went back to them from July of 2023, and this
Oh.
really struck me. I loved this. You and Jenna, your chief
Hmm.
customer officer, were
Customer
there,
officer, right?
and you said strategies never make it to market, and the perfect PowerPoint destroys innovation. And I
Yeah.
just love that message. I couldn't it still resonates today. And it just really is what you're talking about, that this spirit of over focusing on the mechanics or the what we're afraid of really is going to get in the way, and really to take action, even if it makes you uncomfortable, which you say
Right.
it will.
Yes. And I think the biggest sign you're not growing is when you get too comfortable.
Mm,
So I'm always evaluating myself on a daily basis. Like, was it today a comfortable day or was it not? Because the growth comes where there's discomfort, and you have to embrace it. You have to run towards it. And Gen AI and Agentic AI is very uncomfortable, right? Because
hmm.
as we talked about in the first segment, um, there's a certain amount of people who could become victims of Agentic AI. But on the flip side of that very same coin, if you can shift your mindset to say, I get to now work on stuff that's going to challenge me intellectually, it's going to challenge me professionally, it's going to challenge me emotionally, all around. What an opportunity, right? What an opportunity to not have to work on these soul sucking tasks. Like, imagine a world, and this isn't that too far off from reality, right? Where you have robots in your house that can do the laundry, do the dishes,
Yes.
right?
Please do
Do
my
all
laundry.
the vacuuming, and you get to paint, you get to write poetry, you get to do whatever it is that you enjoy to do, knowing that that stuff is going to get taken care of. How freeing that is. And it's that
Mm.
same sort of analogy that I think we can apply here in the professional world too. Um, so, I really hope that people um, understand that the way you're going to master and learn something is by doing. It's not by writing it on a piece of paper and wanting all of the data to line up to say that this is going to lead to success. If you're looking for certainty in something this new, then you're going to be a laggard. You're going to wait until everybody has failed and kind of figured out the perfect path. And by then, they're too far ahead of you. And so you're going to have a really hard time catching up.
I love, again, the the encouragement, the inspiring view that you have toward this technology is it's super contagious. I hope our listeners and everyone who's watching really feels that contagious energy. Before I let you go,
Yeah.
overall, how do you feel about the future of AI? What's next? If you've even developed sort of that vision, what are you excited about?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I'm not unique in this perspective, but I think the real question is, well, what's beyond agentic AI? And, I think the answer to that is how do you string multiple agents together
Okay.
to create, go beyond workflows and have sort of end to end business processes that have in multiple workflows kind of get orchestrated together to really automate the things in the world to a level that we have not seen before and that we probably can't imagine. And so I think we've all heard this concept of software as a service. So I think those are going to get flipped. And so now you're going to get what services as software. So what are the things that can be performed that you used to rely on humans to do that are actually going to be software, driven and performed? And so I think that's going to be, kind of the future, a long ways out. I think along the way, we're going to have some hiccups. We're going to have some people who take the technology and misuse it and use it for not so good things. And we as an industry and as humanity have to have the resilience to say, okay, like
Yep.
we encounter that. This is how we counter that. This is how we put safeguards in place so that this type of thing doesn't happen again. And we learn and embrace that. And we just, have to accept there's probably going to be some things along the way that aren't so great. Um, but in the same way that I think all of the advancements that we've seen today within IT and as well as, kind of the larger world of history, sometimes you need some of these things that don't go the right way for us to emerge stronger, as a community. And I don't think this is any different. I think we're going to probably encounter the same thing. And I just hope our human spirit of we can overcome,
Yes.
we can make this better. We can learn from this, that guides us in how we look at this technology and not be afraid of it. Like really figure out how do we leverage it.
Awesome. Andy, thank you so much for spending time with me. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate your energy and your optimism in this area, and that human element, it's never missing when you talk about technology, and I absolutely love that about you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. This is really fun. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, I hope you have enjoyed watching Strategy for Breakfast. For more content, including the episode where Andy talks about helping companies overcome that hesitancy around barriers to AI success, please check out our Strategy for Breakfast podcast. It's on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And if you'd like to join us for an upcoming GDS Group event, like you heard Andy and I talking about, you can see what's coming up at gdsgroup.com. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Andy, thanks again.
Bye bye.